ladies.
Good afternoon. My name is Mahlase, and welcome to our live coverage of President Jacob Zuma's exit. Is he going? Will the party force him to actually step down? We don't know as yet. We are coming to you live from St. George's Hotel in Irene, just outside of Pretoria. Of course, we are on that Zuma exit watch, and with me here in our makeshift studio is our political reporter Tshidi, Madia, and our resident analyst Mpumelelo, Mkhabela. Tshidi, let me start with you. It looked like we had a short break from what is happening inside, and you were able to get at least one person to talk to you. What is the latest? What are we hearing from inside the NEC meeting?
It seems that they took a bit of a breather, absolutely. But what we're hearing in those moments is some reports are saying he's definitely resigned. He's going to resign, rather, that the decision has been reached. Others saying, no, the decision is for a recall. But one source, a single source from inside, an NEC member said to me, we haven't reached a decision yet. Discussions are still ongoing. We're actually going back inside. We've had 13 people state their case on this matter. He didn't say whether for or against as far as he's concerned. However, 36 more still need to state their case on what they believe should be President Jacob Zuma's fate. So as far as this particular source is concerned, we don't have an answer yet. We still have to wait. Let 36 people seek. Let the ANC decide whether it wants to vote on this issue or not, or if they're all in agreement, and then only then will we have an answer. But for the most part, they're locked in this meeting. We don't have answers. We're still stuck outside. Just here with us, and we don't really know what's happening.
Of course, we tried to get hold of a presidency official. One of them said the news that President Jacob Zuma has resigned is actually fake news, and they're even going as far as trying to say that the public broadcaster must retract that message. Obviously, Mpumi, quite difficult times because clearly we are all in the dark on what is actually happening here.
Yes, we are in the dark, but you know the implications of being in the dark are quite dire for the country, for the president himself, for the ANC, and citizens in general. Because you don't want, you don't want a situation where the country is on autopilot, because that's where it is at the moment. Because nobody seems to be exercising any leadership at the government level. And we're very fortunate that we're generally a very stable country. We're in another country right now, there will be chaos in the streets because there's no center that is holding at the moment. The ANC would like us to believe that it is the strategic center of power, but it is failing at the moment to actually give direction as a strategic center of power, keeping citizens guessing about where it's headed. So that for me, it's a problem. And if you have messages like that from Lakela denying some of these reports, what it means basically is that the president, wherever he's sitting at the union buildings, if he's there, is seeing himself as somebody who still has authority.
Still has power.
Who still has power. But we know that he doesn't actually have political power. He has constitutional power because the president has not been removed. Officially, is the president. But he doesn't have the necessary political power and the necessary moral authority to actually run the country as he would need under normal circumstances.
And I mean, this says that let's go back to how this issue has been handled. I mean, the first NEC meeting that we had in January where David Masondo tabled a motion of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma, and then we had officials disagree with each other, saying there was no decision taken that the president must be recalled. Others are saying there was actually a decision, Tshidi.
Absolutely, I think that's part of the problem, is that they themselves, as far as the messaging around this particular issue is concerned, could not see eye to eye. You had, again, the top officials speaking on completely different levels. The SG of the organization saying there's been no such decision. But when you listen to other officials, I'm thinking back to the leaked audio of Paul Mashatile about how, you know, they've been quite steady and resolute, really, in what needs to happen with President Jacob Zuma. That's a very different language from what we, the media, exposed to when we sit with Ace Makashule, who's the SG. And I think that's part of the problem, is that if you cannot even agree on the language of, and what it is that you're trying to achieve, then how do you then seek to achieve it when you can't start here together on one plate? So that's part of the problem as far as I'm concerned from a communication perspective, is that they failed from the very beginning in handling this.
As the ANC remains silent, the opposition is the one speaking out, and now they're just turning up the tempo. They're now saying that Parliament should deal with Jacob Zuma's fate, and actually are calling for the dissolution of Parliament and for any elections.
This is very interesting because the election of Cyril Ramaphosa as president of the ANC last year was seen as something that would herald the renewal of the ANC, and therefore will take out the sting from the opposition parties who were really gaining ground and winning all the legal and political battles in Parliament under President Jacob Zuma. Now, it is clear that that dawn seems to be struggling to set in. And now you have a situation where the opposition parties seem to be again on the high, and they seem to be, you know, on the side of what many South Africans are saying, that the ANC is failing to decide on this matter. People are very impatient. So the opposition is aligning itself in terms of sentiments with what people are saying on the ground. So again, continuing on that winning streak from where they are sitting.
And obviously grabbing the headlines as this NEC continues to meet. They are the ones that are speaking. They are now putting pressure on Speaker Malekambete to say that we want the motion of no confidence to be brought forward, the one that was supposed to be had on February 22nd.
Nature doesn't allow for a vacuum. I think that's exactly what we are seeing take place. And also what's happening with the opposition forces the ANC to act. You can't allow for the opposition to continuously shine. And they're shining on NC issues. So the ANC needs to rise to the occasion. They failed thus far. I mean, yesterday, on Sunday, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa was going to speak his big Madia moment. The expectations were high in terms of what he was going to deliver. And really it was a non-delivery. In fact, I find that people are talking more about what the opposition had to say today, again putting pressure on the Speaker of the National Assembly. That grabs people's attention more because it feels like they're seeking solutions and are actually trying hard. While you go to the ANC and you hear fruitful and constructive, that's not good enough. That's not good enough for the citizens.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about the choices for the ANC here. Even if they take a decision right now to recall President Jacob Zuma, he still has the option to say, no, I defy you and I will not resign, even though it would be unprecedented.
Yes, he can do that precisely because the National Executive Committee of the ANC did not elect him president. So he was elected by Parliament as the president. So if the ANC wants to take a decision to recall him and they want it to be quick, they must take two decisions. One is to say, we want you to step down, and they must give him a date. The other decision they must take is to say they are convening Parliament on this date to decide so that in the event that he doesn't resign, there's no problem. They've already taken a decision to convene Parliament where they'll vote accordingly, because he has a right to say no, but the ANC also has a right to go and do it the proper way, which is instructing its caucus to say, we've taken a decision to recall the president, so therefore exercise your duty as members of Parliament to recall the president. We no longer have confidence in him. Which, by the way, under any circumstances, will be the best thing to do. The reason why it's difficult to do is for two reasons. One, if it's recalled in that manner, the entire cabinet must resign. And we know some of the people are NEC members sitting here. They don't want to be disbanded at the moment. They wish there could be a transition where they remain cabinet ministers. The second reason why the ANC would not do that is that it doesn't want to be seen to be giving the victory to the opposition parties, because it will be basically saying, here is Zuma's scalp that you've been wanting, claim it now.
And that's what I wanted to say, that they're in a tight corner right now because the EFF put forward the motion of no confidence. They are now saying to the Speaker, bring it forward. So either way, the ANC will find itself voting with the opposition, which, you know, to use Gwede Mantashe's words last year, you cannot be led by the enemy. The soldiers cannot be led by the enemy, but it looks at this point that that is their only option.
That's why today is do or die time, isn't it? The ANC needs to come out with something from this particular NEC sitting, with something solid and concrete. And hope to God that President Jacob Zuma doesn't tempt to defy them, because as Mpumi just pointed out, and as you're saying, that gives a victory to the opposition, an opposition that really didn't have much to go on when Cyril was elected in December. A lot of hope for greater heights or more votes in 2019 dwindled when he won, but they're giving it right back to them. They are in a tight corner, as you said.
And then Mpumi, why is it so difficult for the ANC to decide on President Jacob Zuma? Why does he still appear to have a hold on this party, despite the fact that he's no longer the president of the party? His first candidate, Mrs. Zuma, did not win those elections.
Well, we have to look at history to see where the difficulty of the ANC. It's not the problem now. It's the history. It's how they recalled Thabo Mbeki. That thing is still haunting them until today, because they had a president who had not violated any law, had not violated the constitution. There was a judgment that was against him that was on appeal, for which he was later vindicated and all of that. They decided to recall him nonetheless. And here's another issue which I think Mbeki contributed to the problem, in a sense that he did not say to them, go to Parliament and exercise your right. I agree with you, go to parliament, I won't resist, but let's do it the constitutional way. He then decided to do it the ANC way, as he calls it, as a loyal member of the ANC. I could not say no to what they were saying, even though I didn't agree, but I'm a loyal member of the ANC, I had to do it. This time around, they are facing two situations where the person that must be recalled has violated the constitution, is involved in all kinds of criminality, has run the country down, contributed to the decline of the party, and secondly, he's the kind of a guy who can't agree to go. So they are in a dilemma. They want to, the society is expecting them to be consistent with what happened in the past, and they are not able to be consistent. And I think one of the reasons why they are not being consistent, they want to do what they did to Thabo Mbeki, to Zuma, and these are two different people. These are two different set of circumstances. What they should be doing this time around, and the situation allows them, is to say, let's follow the constitution. Why do we want you to go? We don't want you to go because there's a new ANC leadership. That must not be the reason. The reason to recall Zuma must be because he violated the constitution. He's conflicted the state capture investigation now that's really focusing on him and his family. And you want cabinet members, DGs and other state officials to testify openly without the insecurity of knowing that the person who still holds state power, who can do harm to them, he still remains head of state. So that conflict is a genuine reason why he should step down.
And I'm actually wondering why what Mpumi is citing is actually what's missing. The ANC has been unable to articulate that position.
Yes.
A lot of people are asking, we get that President Cyril Ramaphosa must get Zuma out, we get that you don't want two senses of power, but Cyril Ramaphosa has not taken the Republic into his confidence and said, this is why we cannot have this man here.
Yeah, but
articulating what they're failing to articulate.
Exactly, and Cyril Ramaphosa is not leading, he's actually not leading in this case. He's hopeless.
I wanted to say, I mean, this is a reflection on him. I mean, this is the biggest test since he became president in December.
Yes, he's hopeless in a sense that he tells us about the transition. You know, this is not a transition issue. A transition could be a peaceful transition from one president to another, like the way President Nelson Mandela handed to President Thabo Mbeki. There was a transition that arrangement that they made. There was no criminality, there was no violation of the constitution. There was a structure that was set up in government to manage that transition. Under these circumstances, you're not talking about the transition because the issue is not about a new ANC leadership having been elected and now must go to power. No, the new ANC leadership must go to elections. But we have a crisis of a president who has violated the constitution. So you must deal with that.
And they're struggling really to articulate that. And I think maybe because even with Thabo Mbeki, they waited for that judgment to actually be handed down for them to finally say, this is what we're looking for, this is now why we're saying Thabo Mbeki must actually go. And one of the things that we've been hearing is that President Jacob Zuma was telling the officials is that, what have I done wrong? He made movements when he said he wanted the state of capture inquiry. I have given you that. It is within what the public protector then, Thuli Madonsela, had recommended. So what is the trigger now to say I must actually go?
I don't think they need to explain a trigger to President Jacob Zuma. I don't know why he keeps acting like he's clueless. He knows very well what he's done. Mpumi cited those reasons time and time again. I almost feel like, I think the right thing to say is that they're not ballsy as a top 6 leadership of the ANC. And the ANC needs gutsy leaders. If leaders cannot say to President Jacob Zuma, but you know what you've done, if you cannot face up to him, still, even when he's out of power and wields nothing politically that threatens you.
People have said that President Jacob Zuma is basically being a kamikaze pilot. Is he saying, I'm going down and I will go down with you if necessary? From where we stand,
Well, you can use that analogy. In fact, I prefer that analogy if you use it in relation to state capture, because it appears as a host who has been captured by parasites. You know, the crickets, when they're captured by some worms, the hairworms. The hairworms control the nervous system of the parasite, of the host, so that the host does what ordinarily would not do, even killing itself. That's what is happening here, where for some reason people are possessed by other things other than the constitution of the country. So even Cyril yesterday when he spoke about something, other things, but he didn't talk about the constitution of the country. Mandela, yes, was Mandela, but Mandela himself fought for something. And one of the things that he left behind was a constitution that he respected, that he honored. Why are we not saying, in honor of President Nelson Mandela, let's recall Zuma because he violated the constitution? So all we are having here is people that seemingly are controlled by other things and other interests. And one of the things that, by the way, I think we forget to analyze as journalists and analysts in general. We are so obsessed about matters of principle, like we're discussing here. We forget about the material interests of the people that are having this discussion.
But that's why you have turncoats. That's why you have people turning their
Yes.
backs on Jacob Zuma, because of material needs.
People are calculating.
Bread and butter.
If I hang on for this long as
Yes.
minister and until the elections, you know how much
still
would I
a
have
salary.
earned as a minister?
I would still have a salary.
I would still have a
for
salary.
At least a good 16 months or so.
Exactly. Some people are hanging on to some tender somewhere. They know that, you know, until Zuma is removed, that tender won't be reviewed. At least I'll get paid, and in the meantime, maybe I can fight to make sure that it sounds regular. So there's a lot of other interest at stake here. It's not about principle. If the matter was purely about principle, it would have long been resolved.
Tshidi, I'm going to give you the last word. How long do you think we're going to be out here? Because we are quickly running out of time.
My heart would love to say an hour, but truthfully speaking, there's 36 speakers and they still need to go and debate, speak for and against. And they still need to kind of debate whether they're going to vote over it or not. I think we've got a few hours. I think we must settle in for a long night.
Well, that was News 24's political reporter Tshidi Madia, and she was joined by our resident analyst Mpumelelo Mkhabela. We are coming to you live from St. George's in Irene, just outside of Pretoria, where the ANC is holding its National Executive Committee meeting. We're expecting them to have a decision on whether they are recalling President Jacob Zuma as the head of state. We will be with you as more news break. Please stay tuned to News 24. My name is Madia.